everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video we're going to be talking about white-tailed hawks. Now, I actually did a video on the entire genus Geranoaetus, which is the buzzard eagles. So that includes the white-tailed hawk that we're talking about in this video, the variable hawk, which can vary widely from extremely pale to extremely dark, and the black-chested buzzard eagle. Now, all three of these are buzzard eagles, and I did a video covering all three of those, and I'll put a link to that below this video. But because it was such a long video, I thought, you know what, I'll take cuts from that big long form video and just make a video where we're just covering each of the species individually, and that's what this one is. So here you go. We're going to learn about the white-tailed hawk. The white-tailed hawk. This is really a handsome and stately looking bird. We call it a hawk, but in truth, it is a member of the buzzard eagle lineage. It's the smallest of the New World buzzard eagles, the smallest of the three, but it's still quite large. It's normal adult colors. It's creamy. It's kind of white-chested. It can be black. It can be red. It kind of has red on the shoulders. And as an adult, it has a brilliant white tail. Now, there are melanistic forms that are totally dark that are very striking as well. These are common, but they're not common in the United States. So this is a bird that is mostly further south. You get down into the Latin America where you see this bird, and where it ranges, the further south you get, the more melanistic individuals you find. But where it ranges up into Texas, you basically never see any of the melanistic individuals. Now, size-wise, this species, the wingspan is about 56 inches, so that's about 4 foot 6 inches, so big, substantial wings. And the weight is about 1,240 grams, which is about 2.73 pounds. So this is a sizable hawk. And again, I'm going to be using the term hawk and buzzard eagle interchangeably. It's the smallest of the New World buzzard eagles. But again, we use the term hawk inaccurately in the New World. A true hawk is something like a goshawk. And something like a red-tailed hawk is a buzzard. And so this is a member of the buzzard eagle family. So what's really strange about these, though, they have a big wingspan, but their primaries are oversized to the point where when the wings are folded up, the primary feathers actually extend down past the tail, which is true of all New World buzzard eagles, but especially the white-tailed hawk. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll always notice it. But oddly, the tails of the first-year birds are about 15% longer, which is kind of interesting. 15% longer than adult, and on adult they're already that much different. So what we see is with tails, with raptors, sometimes it seems like you kind of get a pass when you're young. So the tail of a juvenile, a good example is peregrine falcons. Peregrine falcons have a pretty long tail as a first-year bird, and then they lose several inches their second year. The new tail that comes in is much shorter and stiffer, and so the assumption is the longer your tail is, the easier it is to turn, but it also creates drag. And so a shorter tail, once you really know how to move, then you could, assumingly, that's it's the inference, is that you can use a shorter tail. So it'd be kind of like the difference between flying a propeller-powered plane versus a jet. You first learn with a prop plane, and then you move up. It's kind of that same kind of idea. We believe that is the case, and we definitely see it with the white-tailed hawk. They have these oversized tails and ridiculously oversized wings, but again, they lose about 15% of that tail their second year, and so then the primaries are even longer. The juveniles, the first-year birds, they start off dark. Now remember, with most raptor species that are the size of a hawk, take a red-tailed hawk, for example, you'll have first-year colors, and then once you're 1 year old, you molt and you get your adult colors, and you'll get a new set every year. Well, that is not the case, because white-tailed hawks are actually not hawks, but they're actually buzzard eagles. They have a multi-year molt. It's a 3 to 4 year molt, which means that they have different color phases moving up. So you'll have first-year colors, second-year colors, third-year colors, fourth-year colors, and by their fifth year, you have then your beautiful, striking adult colors and your fancy white tail. So it can be kind of tricky when you're trying to identify these birds in the field, because you might have some sort of intermediate color phase going on, and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. So but it's good to understand that fact, that it takes many years for these birds to reach their adult coloration. You don't see that with birds this size. That is not normal for a bird this small. But again, they are moving and evolving into filling a larger role. And so having juvenile colors longer indicates to any prospective mate that you haven't been around long enough, you're not ready to start a family, and it's a safer bet to pick an adult that has adult plumage, and so they're moving up. They're moving into filling a more eagle-like role. Their nest that they make is kind of strange, because they'll make a big old stick nest, but oddly, I don't have any good pictures of this, but oddly it has been observed that some of them seem to have nests that are almost decorative, where they'll just have like a random stick sticking way out. That just seems to be some sort of expression. We don't really see this with any other raptor. Normally nests are just about function when it comes to raptors. If a raptor builds a nest, it's just to keep the babies safe. But they will put one or two decorative, like sticking way out from the nest, just random giant stick. It's strange. When we're dealing with animals, a lot of times we don't know what we're really dealing with, because we don't know what makes sense to them. So could that be a cultural thing? The first a vestige of a cultural expression, that, well, this is what we do, this is how we say that we're this kind of hawk. We don't know, but it's an unusual thing. They normally have 2 to 3 eggs, which again, it kind of makes sense for a bird this size. And it's interesting that a lot of times they're scissor-tailed flycatchers that will nest right next to the white-tailed hawk nest, or even in it. So in other words, they will go down, and in the below parts of the nest itself will weave a little nest, and they will nest in there. Now that seems really strange, because if you think about it, these hawks will sometimes hunt birds. So why would you risk that? Why would you do that? And the reason being is, if you are near a hawk nest, in theory, other predators are less likely to eat you. And in theory, that predator itself is less likely to go after you, because there's no element of surprise. But even though they will nest right next to these, they also will sometimes mob them. And I've got a picture also that's kind of an interesting one, where there is a white-tailed hawk and there is a flycatcher. It's not a scissor-tailed flycatcher, but it is a flycatcher that's dive bombing it. And you'll notice to the side there are 2 shrikes. Now, shrikes are very interesting birds. They're also called butcher birds. Shrikes are predators. They're predatory birds, but they're not considered raptors. They'll catch prey. They'll catch mice and catch other birds and catch insects, and they catch them with their beak, and then they'll fly up either to a thorn bush or a piece of barbed wire, and they will impale their prey on that, and then they will pull the meat off from there, because they don't have gripping talons like raptors do. So shrikes are hunters, but they will happily steal a free meal. And in this video, in this photo, you can see that these 2 shrikes are perched next to the white-tailed hawk, and they try to find the scraps, because if a white-tailed hawk is eating and tearing apart food, then it might drop a few little pieces. Shrike is a lot smaller. It can fly down afterward and try to see if it can eat any of what was dropped on the ground. So there's kind of this interaction that happens between flycatchers and shrikes and white-tailed hawks, and it's very commonly documented. So what do the whitetails themselves eat? Well, they are very, very adaptable. In Texas, they almost exclusively hunt rabbits. Now that should be impressive, because most buzzards of any kind, like red-tailed hawks, they're always going to go for the smallest meal, the easiest meal. So if you're like, hey, red-tailed hawk, here's a rabbit, and here's a mouse or a vole or a rat, something way smaller, they're going to go for the smaller prey. It's easier to kill, it's easier to tackle. In falconry, when we train any member of the buzzard lineage, we have to push them and encourage them, hey, you can tackle this larger prey. But it makes up to 90% of the prey base in Texas is rabbits. They hunt rabbits on their own. They also hunt rats, snakes, lizards, frogs, and surprisingly, a lot of arthropods. So that's like your insects. They'll eat a lot of cicadas. They'll hunt beetles. and they'll hunt grasshoppers. Now that should seem strange. That's very unusual to have a bird this big that will hunt prey as large as a rabbit, but also hunt insects. Now, something like a Swainson's hawk, Swainson's hawks make sense. Swainson's hawks are diminutive. They're kind of little members of the buzzard family. Swainson's hawks, they'll hunt mice and rats, but they love to hunt insects. To get a Swainson's hawk, to encourage them to go after something like a rabbit, that's crazy. They can do it, but it's crazy. But the fact that you have a bird large enough that on its own, it is already hunting wild rabbits, but it will also go to the level of just eating insects, then that's great. Right? And because they live in such arid regions and such prairies and plains and deserts, then it is sensible, because food is food. And if you can be on the ground walking around, oh, here's a beetle, oh, here's a cicada, oh, here's some grasshoppers, that just adds up. That's free, easy meal. It's like eating a cheeseburger instead of having to go chase down a cow. And so it kind of makes sense. Some of these desert regions, you've got to go with what food source is available, but it seems kind of strange to our sensibilities. They do hunt a lot of songbirds, and they'll even hunt quail, which again, that is kind of surprising, because a bird this size and this power normally is considered to be also kind of slow. Its ability to dive is understood, but the maneuverability is kind of dismissed. Red-tailed hawks, which are a similar size, you don't see them going and hunting birds regularly. Not usually, not songbirds. That would be kind of a stretch for them. These guys do it regularly. So even though they're kind of ponderous and slow and dumpy, when they want to, when they're hunting avian prey, they can really get up and go. They do hunt a lot of rabbits and birds and arthropods of all kinds. It's kind of strange, but it's also weird because they also hunt monkeys, like marmosets, and that's kind of strange because when you think about it, it's a bird that ranges from Texas to the tropics. I don't think about monkeys when I'm thinking of Texas, but because the bird ranges down further and down into in Latin America, then yeah, there's monkeys, and it will hunt those small monkeys. So you got something that'll hunt grasshoppers, monkeys, rabbits. It's quite a wide prey range, and so that's why it's so successful. It is known to also key in on brush fires. And if there are brush fires, it'll come to the fire and try to find opportunities where prey is trapped, and it'll just dive in and catch it. Because when you have these grasslands, they cover up everything. And when that starts to burn through, prey is like, we got to get out of here. And they come out from their hiding, and it makes very easy prey. So the white-tailed hawk, again, is the first of the 3 New World buzzard eagles, and it's a very beautiful bird. I've never worked with one directly. I would like to, but again, it's about the size of a large red tail, has a few color morphs and some color variation, but a very interesting species, and I think they're pretty cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the white-tailed hawk. It's a fascinating species, and I think it's really a unique bird. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about it. If you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe, I really appreciate it. It helps keep this channel up and going. And let me know any questions or comments you have down below. And as always, happy hawking.